Dear everybody, welcome back to another oft-sold video game Longplay. Today we are going to be playing I Love Cars Tomica World. Now, I'm making this video mainly because just about a week ago I posted checking the waters, seeing how everyone's feeling. I asked how much they cared about the oft-sold legacy, and I got a couple hundred responses to that, and overwhelmingly what people were saying was, I care a lot about the oft-sold legacy. I got some people writing comments under there saying that they think about me every now and then. They think about my channel and the kind of content that I made, and I want to appeal to that demographic, so... Now, getting into the game, the first thing you might notice is that the soundtrack's pretty awesome. Now, something to note is that this soundtrack was done by Hirokazu Tanaka, most famous for his famous Tanaka's theme, which is present in most games that he made. However, you're not going to be hearing it here. So, going into the first of the many different trials and various game modes that this has, this is one where you get to drive around. I'm choosing the interesting mouse-type character first because he stuck out to me, and I always like driving over to this rocket ship for him. Now, another thing to note is that these destinations that you're going to, these are randomized every time. The last time I played through this game, a couple years back, you go to the roller coaster, actually, and this time you go to the spaceship. So once you land there, you're just going to want to hit that button over there, and I apologize for the Windows 95 keyboard thing down there. I don't actually speak Japanese, but in order to play a lot of these types of games, you want to run on a Japanese OEM, just because then you're able to run any of the English type games you want, because you got to be able to switch between that Roman script and the Japanese script often, but you just can't do that very easily in English Windows 95, pardon me. And I've noticed that. And there might be some workarounds around it. There might be some sort of drivers you can install that'll make things run better, but this works well for me. Despite not being able to read anything, I generally don't encounter many issues, and I'm able to run things pretty well. And yeah, so now I'm moving on to the monkey, and you might have noticed earlier I got stopped by a police officer. That's because I run every red light. I find this game, a lot like GTA, is one of those games that you really want to play it the same way that you live your life. You want to just get that personal connection for it. Now, the reason that I chose this game is because I couldn't find any content of anyone playing this game online, and I like to document this kind of stuff. I like to provide footage for this kind of thing. My last time that I did something like this, it was the Pasosuke Longplay, which received a hugely positive reception. It's one of my most important videos on my channel, I feel like. It's actually linked in the Adventure Legends. I'm probably fucking butchering that. Anyway, it's linked on the website that I first heard about that game from, and they quoted something from my bio where I was talking about the company that published that game and some of the things that company has produced other than that, mainly just hentai games. I'm beating around the bush here. I need to address the elephant in the room, the thing you've all been thinking this whole time. Oft-sold, where have you been? And as much as I'd like to say something cool like, I've been chilling, I've been relaxing, the truth is I've just been doing a lot of work recently. I've recently been working at Myers, and if you don't know what a Myers is, you don't live near a Myers, just think of it like a Walmart, more associated with its grocery department rather than its big box kind of merchandise. And if you don't live near a Walmart, then I'm sorry, you're missing out on a great time. But I actually left there because, really, the same reason I haven't been, uploading, I haven't been contributing to this channel, because, my biggest goal in life is to grow this channel, really grow that brand out, and reach the kind of audience I've been wanting to reach this whole time. But I haven't had the time to do that. I've been working about 12-hour shifts, 5-6 days a week, which a lot of people could say that's nothing, and I understand that. Honestly, in a lot of ways, I had privilege with that kind of job, but not the kind of thing that I would want to subject myself to personally. Currently working at Chipotle now. Fascinating place. Lots of food, lots of burritos, tacos, anything really. Anything flies there, so really enjoying it there. Now, this actually, not to go on too big of a tangent here, but this reminds me of something. I recently saw this Twitter post by someone going by the name of Logo Daedalus, and they said, and before I actually go into this, the reason I'm bridging between these two things is because in Lansing, Michigan, there's a Chipotle that it's the only unionized Chipotle in all of Chipotle. You know, it's the only one that's in the company currently. It recently got unionized, I believe, last year. I could have my information wrong on that. Do not quote me. But that reminds me of this tweet. It's, like I said, Logo Daedalus said this, and they said, the definition of proletarian matters because it distinguishes reactionary unions of bourgeoisie service work from proletarian labor, which is unionized. The Amazon union, for example, is proletarian. Starbucks union is not. And if you don't understand this, you never will. Now, this tweet really speaks to me on a couple of different levels. I'm talking like physical, metaphysical, eye level. Now, this is getting to me because the idea of food labor not being an important labor in this kind of thing, I don't even know if they're going for important. Like I said, if you don't understand this, you never will, and I'm not gonna fucking understand this, but trying to pick this apart, like, the only two things I could read this as are the importance of the labor, or what I'm guessing is the amount of suffering involved in the labor, because Amazon fucking sucks as a company to work at. I'm not talking anything outside of that. That isn't the address of this complaint. The address of this complaint would be the work at an Amazon warehouse. I have a close friend of mine who actually got arthritis at the age of fucking 23 from packaging boxes, at an Amazon warehouse. And that's fucking absurd to me that they could get away with that. Sorry to break this really quick. To comment on the gameplay, this is one of the other selections of this magnificent game. You get to look at some of the different trucks, and using QuickTime Media Player, you can look at some full motion videos of what these trucks are based on. I can't read what the trucks say, so not really getting much out of it, but nonetheless, just thought I'd cue you in on what's going on here in case you're not picking it up from context clues. This is primarily a video game channel, but anyway, back to the awesome tweet. It doesn't make any sense to me, you know? Because on that idea of suffering, you could first go into the idea of everyone's suffering's worse. I'm not going to discount the fact that, like I was saying, Amazon is horrible, but some people cannot do customer service. You know, there are some people who they are not equipped for that. And having representation in that kind of position, if you're going to have to be working that kind of job, is deeply important. It's important to have, you know, representation in really any job, but specifically food service, that kind of thing is important. You have to be able to negotiate with your managers in that kind of scenario. But I digress. If what they're saying is that the work of a food service worker isn't important, maybe they are specifically saying Starbucks in this scenario. You know, maybe they're saying there's no reason for specifically Starbucks to exist. If you go to a Tim Hortons, you know, a Big B, I don't know how nationwide Big B is. I'm a Midwest bitch. You know, if you go to a different type of coffee shop, then you're going to have a different type of importance for that, but Starbucks specifically doesn't matter. I'm being a bit disingenuous to them right now. I'll admit this is a bit of a straw man, but, you know, when you say something like, if you don't understand this, you never will, you're kind of setting yourself up to be, to have me be a pedant at you, you know, and sorry, this is a bit distracting. This is pretty awesome gameplay, as I'm sure you can see. So you can look at two 3D models. They've got two of them on this disc. Mind you, I can pull up an eBay link. This game is currently being sold for like fucking $400. So if you want to pay $400 to look at these two 3D models, that's on you. I can't even really make a joke about that. That's fucking absurd. But the music's pretty awesome. I like the title screen music in this game best. I believe that's where Tanaka got his... he struck his biggest chord. No pun intended. But to finish off my little rant about that tweet, it's just buzzwords, It's just throwing out some opinions that are kind of half-baked with some buzzwords you've heard. And like I said earlier, that might be disingenuous. That might be just not giving him the credit that he deserves. But I can't know what credit Logo Daedalus deserves, because if I don't understand this, I never will. I'm not going to understand this tweet. Might not even be any reason to pick this apart. Now, I should start talking about the game here. I've drifted aloft a bit too long here. So there are 8 puzzles here, each with a bit of increasing difficulty. Each one you got more pieces. This one's just a 6-piece puzzle. Now, something that I really respect about this game is that you can see it right there. The piece snapped away from the slot it's supposed to go in, and some people might look at that and think, why do you have to be so precise dragging this down? That feels like just bad programming. Why didn't they understand regions or that kind of thing? And I don't know. I think that it adds a level of difficulty that the puzzles wouldn't normally have without that. If you've ever played Mario's Picross for the Game Boy, you'll know about the time limit in that game. Every time you mess up, then it takes away an exponential amount of time until you run out of your 30 minutes worth of time. And when I first played that game, I remember thinking, this feature is fucking awful. I hate the idea of running out of time, because I just want to have a chill time playing my fucking Mario puzzle game. But after I downloaded some apps, there was this one. It's got cool trendy palette colors. Can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it doesn't have a time limit whatsoever. If you mess up, it doesn't fucking care whatsoever. You just gotta get the correct picture. That's all it cares about. And I remember playing through it and being like, this is nothing, What's the use of even trying? You can just mash different random things until you get things correctly. I guess it could operate on sort of a hangman principle, but I feel like the time principle, looking at it through that lens, it seems a lot more interesting. It seems a lot more, it matters a lot more to mess up, to try, and to actually think about what you're doing. So it's one of those things where playing the game for the first time, I didn't care about it whatsoever. I didn't care for it, I should say, that feature. But after playing through some games that didn't have that kind of punishment to them, I gained a new respect for it, and I can't imagine playing Picross without that kind of a heavy time limit. And a lot of different Picross games on the App Store have that as an option you can turn on. That's just not enabled by default, but now I'm turning on that option, I feel the same way about, I Love Cars, Tomica World's puzzle snapping feature, because, it's snapped off. That makes it difficult, but that means that you can't just throw these pieces on willy-nilly. You actually have to set it in a slot where it would go. And it makes it, you gotta actually imagine what the picture would look like with these pieces. And if you're watching this on a high-quality screen, you might be thinking to yourself, I'm fucking terrible at puzzles, right? I'm not doing too bad now, but you'll see a bit later in the content. Yes, this is actually an overdub. Welcome to the 21st century. You'll see that I'm fucking terrible at these puzzles. But what I should note is that when you're playing this in a 640 by 480 resolution on a pretty cheap-ass ThinkPad screen, you got it down there all the way. This pretty much just looks like white. I'm pretty much just placing this on white myself, looking at this and a much more high quality screen as I'm recording these and doing some editing. I'm noticing that it is like this. What's going on here? I didn't know where to put that piece. I had to actually look. You know, it looks like I'm a fucking 2-year-old putting the circle in the Burkle right now, but when I was doing this in real time, it was a lot more difficult. So if you're thinking about taking back what you said about the Offsold legacy, if you're thinking about backing off those commitments, I'm giving you assurance here. I'm telling you that I'm not as stupid as I look. I'm not as incapable as I look at We Love Cars, Title World, Tomica World, sorry. I'm just unprofessional, is all that it comes down to. Now, I'm gonna back off a little bit from the commentary. I'm gonna let the gameplay speak for itself a little, just give you a taste of the soundtrack.
パズルで遊ぼう。クリックしたままピースを運んではめてね。したままピースを運んではめてね。
Dear buddy, we're just going to be jumping right back into it. I had something I wanted to talk to you guys about. Now, it didn't really have a segue from anything we've been talking about prior. I guess it's a little bit related to that conversation about the tweet, but not entirely. And I figured that the pause would be a good enough of a segue. You know, we're just building off of nothing here, starting anew. Now, what I wanted to read was a quote that I really liked from the essay Anti-Oedipus, Capitalism and Schizophrenia by Gilles Deleuze and Fender Guitar. Now, it's a quote that I really like. It's a section of it, and I'm just going to read through it, and I'll stop to provide some context where need be, but at the end I'm just gonna explain why I like that. So, jumping right in, it would be a total misunderstanding of this order of thought. Now, to cut it off right there, when he says this order of thought, what you're misunderstanding is the idea of a schizophrenic being in this paradoxical nature by their existence under any sort of system, really, but specifically in this context, a capitalist system. And, that paradoxical nature is the idea. What he says is schizophrenic is not man and woman. He is man or woman, but both. You are both either man or woman, but both man and woman. Now, that might seem confusing, but that's what he's explaining in this paragraph. So jumping back in, it would be a total misunderstanding of this order of thought if we concluded that the schizophrenic substituted vague syntheses of identification of contradictory elements for these disjunctions, like the last of the Hegelian philosophers. He does not substitute syntheses of contradictory elements for disjunctive syntheses. Rather, for the exclusive and restrictive use of the disjunctive syntheses, he substitutes an affirmative use. He is and remains in disjunction. He does not abolish disjunction by identifying the contradictory elements by means of elaboration. Instead, he affirms it through a continuous overflight spanning an indivisible distance. He is not simply bisexual or between the two or intersexual. He is transsexual. He is trans-alive dead, trans-parent-child. He does not reduce two contraries to an identity of the same. He affirms their distance as that which relates the two as different. He does not confine himself inside contradictions. On the contrary, he opens out and, like a spore case inflated with spores, releases them as so many singularities that he had improperly shut off, some of which he intended to exclude while retaining others, but which now become point signs, all affirmed by their new distance. The disjunction, being now inclusive, does not closet itself inside its own terms. On the contrary, it is non-restrictive. I was then no longer this closed box to which I owed being so well preserved, but a partition came crashing down, an event that will liberate a space where Malloy and Mora no longer designate persons, but singularities flocking from all sides, evanescent agents of production. To take a quick break, this section of the game is just a catalog of all products that Tomica makes. It's got the price down there. If you want to buy these prices aren't accurate anymore. Continuing on, where was I? This is free disjunction. The differential portions persist in their entirety. They even take on a free quality, but they are all inhabited by a faceless and transpositional subject. Schreber is man and woman. Schreber being Judge Schreber of his work. Freud talked about him. There are a couple other essays. This is another one of the big ones right here. But anyway, Schreber is man and woman, parent and child, dead and alive, which is to say he is situated wherever there is a singularity, in all the series and all the branches, marked by a singular point because he is himself this distance that transforms him into a woman, and at its terminal point he is already the motherly new humanity and can finally die. Now that was my gameplay of I Love Cars Tomica World. A fantastic game all around. I would recommend it to anyone who likes driving games like Forza, Ford Racing 3 for the PlayStation 2, or Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, if you liked this video, make sure to smash that subscribe button, hit that like button, and hit that notification bell to get more content like this. Au revoir and have a great night.